So first of all, this is one of the most impressive room that I ever had the opportunity to speak at, and having 4 marble dudes staring is kind of interesting to me. As Nicola said, my name is Luca Sartoni. I work at Automatic, and Automatic is the company behind WordPress.com and many other products, many other projects. So some of you may be familiar with them. The chances that you are using one of that product is pretty high. But today I'm not here to talk about WordPress.com. I'm here to talk about growth hacking, which is one of the cool words, one of the cool labels that now the industry is spinning. And I want to start with a prayer. So I'm pretty sure that if you're on Facebook, you've seen this prayer in Italian or in English showing up on your wall many times, because this is one of the most shared quotes that you can find on Facebook. So, Lord, grant me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And this is attributed to St. Francis, which was in Assisi, a few hours from Rome. And I selected this because it's coming from an Italian author, an Italian figure that is that is very solid in this country. So I'm from Ravenna, which is in the Adriatic coast in Italy, and now I live in Vienna, but I travel most of the time. And the interesting thing about this prayer is that over time it was attributed to many different people. So it was also attributed to Thomas Aquinas, Tommaso d'Aquino in Italian, and many others. So every relevant figure in the history got this attributed to him, including St. Francis, because in reality it was written almost 700 years after St. Francis by an American theologist, Reinhold Niebuhr. So what is the interesting fact in having so many attributions to a quote? Well, as Abraham Lincoln was saying all the time, the problem with quotes on the internet is that it's very difficult to attribute them correctly, right? And if it's that difficult to attribute a quote to the right person in a society that is mainly based on data, how can we make good decisions when we run a business? Because we can assume that many other information that we get are not that accurate. And how can we focus on what matters running a business when we have no reliability on the data we get, or we're not sure where this data is coming from, or are we sure that that works exactly the way it is supposed to do? So, working on startups, speaking at an event, Seedcamp, I'm more focused on startups for this presentation. Feel free to raise your hand and ask questions at any point. I'll try to find the right time to answer, and don't be afraid of stopping me if there is something that is not 100% clear to you. So, but the first question is my question to you. What is a startup? How many of you have a startup here? Come on. Many of you. So, I'm not starting with you asking this question, but someone else wants to answer. What is a startup? Okay. Can you just shut up for the entire presentation, because you just spoiled the entire gag here? I'm just kidding. He's right. He says startup is growth. According to the definition that Paul Graham gave back in 2012, a startup is a company designed to grow fast. And that is the only point. A startup is not a company, it's a phase of a company. And startup is the time where the company is growing fast. And the essential thing is growth. So a startup is a company designed to grow fast. Is that clear? Is that clearer? A startup is a company designed to grow fast. Even bigger. A startup is a company designed to grow fast. What is the point of this? That is growing, that is designed to grow. The company needs to be designed to grow. It's not going to grow by itself. It can happen, but that would not be easy to manage. It needs to be designed to grow fast. So the entire point today it's not working, but can you just go forward? Huh? Yeah, it's the left. It's not working. Can you just go forward one? It's designed to give problems. Yeah, it's designed not to work. It's on. Oh, now it's working. OK. So how to design growth? Because as I said, design is the entire point. The idea that you are in control of the growth, that you set the foundation of your startup on growth. So today, I'm going to give you a few points on how to design growth. These are not all the points. Designing growth is very, very complicated, at least as complicated as having a successful business. So these are the 3 points that I'm going to explore today. The first are adaptation skills. You need to adapt. Only people and only companies that they adapt to the system, they tend to survive. Not all of them, but for sure, if you survive, you have good adaptation skills. Then you need the culture to grow fast. And then you need tools. If you go online and you search for grow hacking, everything you find is just about tools. I'm going to explore the tools. So no worries, you're going to see a few tips and tricks. But focus on the first 2, because without the first 2, you're going to have like a very big toolbox full of things that you're not going to use because you're not designed to grow. So let's start from adaptation skills. First thing to understand, there are things we cannot change, period. There are things we cannot change. We should know that, but we tend to forget it. I had meetings where people were, oh, we're going to do something that will be so cool that people will come by and give us the money. It doesn't work that way. Not just because you're cool that people are going to give you the money. So things that they don't change. Laws of physics. If you want to make an app that is defying gravity, probably it's not going to work. People's behavior. Yes, over time, companies like Apple showed us that you can design an object or a product that is going to change people's behavior. If we think about our life before the iPhone and after the iPhone, our behavior changed. But that just didn't show up. They just didn't show up with the phone. There were many years of research behind that. And marketing funnels. But many other things in a company, they don't change. Hiring processes, or how people are passionate about their hobbies or their job. So let's start with something that people tend to forget as soon as they think about having a startup. A marketing funnel. We don't need marketing. We're a startup. Sure. So this is a funnel that is designed to work best on a growing, on the short term, medium term, and long term of a growing phase. We have acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. It's defined R. It's called also the pirate funnel. Do you know all those steps? Do you know what they mean exactly? How those steps are connected with the project you are running? Because if you don't, then you have a problem. If you don't study how to read and write, you cannot be a novelist. If you don't know how marketing works, you cannot market your product. Don't believe the lie that companies came up out of nothing. Don't think that if you think that Facebook became Facebook just because people like to press like, it's not going to happen. There was an investment in marketing. And you have at least to know how it works. So acquisition, people they get in. People they get in contact with you. Activation, people they sign up. They give you their email. They start the first actions with your product. Retention, people decide to stay so they don't forget about you and they keep on using your product. Referral, people like it so much or for any other reason, they tell other people about your product. And revenue, you get money out of that. This funnel can be divided in small pieces. There are the 5 parts, but can also be applied at different points of your project. Can be a marketing funnel for a specific feature, can be a marketing funnel for a specific product, can be the entire marketing funnel for the entire company. You can have many points of entry for the acquisition. You can have many points of exit from revenues because you can monetize in different ways, even if it's the same product or the same company. You can have advertisement, you can have subscription, you can have a mixed business model. So you have to deal with it. You cannot just say, marketing, that is not for startups, or, oh, my startups, I just hire engineers. Sure, but make sure you also know that without that, it's very difficult to succeed. Growth is a matter of culture. So let's talk a little bit about culture. I find very interesting when people tell me, oh, you know, Rome is going to be the next Silicon Valley, or Sofia is going to be the next Silicon Valley, Lisbon will be the next Silicon Valley, Berlin will be the next Silicon Valley. Why do you want to be the next Silicon Valley? Because we have the myth, right, that being the Silicon Valley means that it's going to be easier. Taxes will be easier. Hiring will be easier. Firing people will be easier. Having success will be easier. Are you really sure about that? Are you really sure that the thing that is locking all these amazing people in Rome or in Sofia or in Lisbon or in Berlin is the geographical location or the name of the place or the tax system or the labor law? Most of the time, I find big locks in companies regarding culture. What do I mean? Well, there are a few places where diversity is not encouraged. If your company is not embracing diversity, you're going to have big troubles. Why? Because you cannot scale, you cannot grow. Not because you don't have enough servers in your web farm, in your data center. Not because your engineers don't know HTTP or they don't know HTML. It's not that. It's just because if you want to sell something to Indian people, you need to know about India. You need to have someone that was contaminated by the Indian culture somehow, knows how things work over there. If you want to sell stuff to the Arab countries, you need at least people that they write Arab, or they know Arabic, or they have something that was contaminated by them. Just because they use Arabic numbers, then you can sell them. The world is global, but every single place has a different culture, has a different way of doing things. And if you don't contaminate the entire company with the globality of the world, you cannot have a global project, period. Simple, as simple as that. If you are from Rome and you only hire your schoolmates because you were growing up together and you really trust each other, you're going to have something great that works in Rome. You cannot aspire to grow anywhere else. You cannot aspire to go in Finland because they don't care if you were going to school together. They just don't. WordPress has this interesting mantra, this interesting sentence, code is poetry. What does it mean? That we write poems when we write code? No, it's just a very inclusive statement. That means it doesn't matter if you know how to code well, how to code extremely well. There's always something you can do to contribute. Can be writing documentation, can be translating, can be just supporting, can be organizing events, can be anything. But anybody, everybody is entitled to contribute. So my suggestion is always contaminate your engineers with art, with human science, with everything that is very different from them. Everything that is diverse, starting from hiring people that are very diverse from each other, to sending them abroad. You want to do a big thing for your company, you want to really invest money, as soon as you get the first seed round, take your engineers, send them across the world for a week, 2 weeks. Make them to spend time in a place that they would never go if they're not sent by you. That is the biggest gift you can give to yourself and to your company. And let everyone contribute. Don't tell people, oh, you're in support, you are not entitled to question engineering choice. Or you're an engineer, you're not entitled to talk to people. Because our customers, they only have to deal with PR and support. Forget that. Let people contribute the way they want to contribute. because that is the true form of setting the company's culture. Then, let's go back to business. Not that the other part is not business, but something I've seen a lot of times are people don't know exactly which are their metrics. Because as soon as you start to ask about their growth, yeah, but you mean users growth? You mean signups? You mean traffic on Google Analytics? You mean revenues? Depends. Every company has a different metric. You can have a company that the business model is based on acquisition, so you have display advertisement, so the traffic matters. But you can have a company that is based on revenues, so revenue matter. You have to define your own metrics and work those metrics toward growth. You cannot just copy other companies, because this week is very hyped to have a lot of traffic, and next week you're going to focus on metrics, on revenue, sorry. So define your own metrics and stick to them. And be honest about those metrics. Why I want to highlight the honesty here? Well, because I've seen a few times people that they are, wow, the traffic is really booming. And then the week after is like, well, the traffic is not booming anymore, but revenues are going up. And then a week or 2 weeks after, well, revenues are a little stale, but sign-ups, as soon as you define your metrics, you have to stick to them. And if you change the metrics, you should not change the key metrics just because this week something is going better than the other week. Every time you change the metrics, you are, by fact, pivoting. Pivoting is not just about changing your business model, changing the company, changing the product. As soon as you say, I'm not focusing on acquisition anymore and I focus on revenue, you are pivoting. Even if you don't like the idea of that. As soon as you say, I stop looking at revenue because it's really bad, but look at the traffic, you are pivoting. It needs to be by design. You sit and you say, from now on, in the next 3 months, the only thing we care is acquisition. Fine. But not as a result of a failure in measuring something. And then, as soon as you define your metrics, have a scientific approach. What do I mean? Well, if you conduct tests, try not to spoil the test. If you have an hypothesis, treat it as an hypothesis. So you say, if I do this, I expect to get that. If it doesn't happen, then you sit again and you say, it didn't happen. I expected this, it didn't happen, this is the reason, next time I know about it. So let's jump into tools. So we put all the things together, and you're going to see a more pragmatic examples that can help you to explore this area of growth. So the 3 tools I'm going to talk about today are tools that I expect, having startups, you at least know about them. At least you have a basic knowledge. I'm trying to go through them. If I get too jargon, please stop me and ask. If I'm too simple, just be patient. So the first tool is A/B tests. Are you all familiar with A/B tests? Yes, no. This is yes. This is no. Yes? OK. Just a quick overview of A/B tests. A/B tests mean that as soon as people enter your marketing funnel, as soon as people go to your site, they are bucketed. So it means they are divided randomly into groups. That randomly is very, very important. Make sure that it is as random as possible. So they are divided into different groups. Let's assume that all the people get in, and I say all the people on the left are divided from all the people on the right. And then this population, is going to have a specific experience that can be a yellow website. And all this population is going to see a different thing. They're going to have a different experience. It can be a blue site. But can also be a specific element of the design, or can be a complete different flow, can also be a complete different site. There is no limit in that. Then, at the end, I'm going to measure performances of this group, performances of the other group, and then I can say, statistically, this variation performs better than the other one. Why do I say statistically? Because there is a lot of math involved. It's not just as simple as saying it. So A/B tests are very easy to talk about, but very, very difficult to perform. There are a few things, though, that, in my experience, tend to show up at the very beginning of your A/B test experience. So I'm not going to explore all the little details that you're going to experience along the way. Just remember that there's always a better way to do a test. Whatever you do, there's always a better way to do it. So don't get too anxious about the quality of your test. Just make sure that it's good enough for you. But there are three things that happen as soon as you start. And I'm going to explain you which are the three things that you should immediately know about so you don't waste time finding it by yourself. The first one is about weekly seasonality. We tend to think that every day is a good day, right? But in reality, it's not. Monday is really, really a bad day. And the same is online. No matter what kind of project you have, if you measure performances of anything on Monday morning, it's going to be different than Thursday afternoon. There's a good chance that it will be totally different on Wednesday afternoon. So every time you conduct a test on live audience, take at least a week span for the test. It's not an absolute rule. There are situations where with just 2 hours, you can say it. And there are situations where you need at least 3 months of test because you don't have enough traffic, and to get significant, you need a lot of time. So a week is not an universal time frame. But for many tests, a week is the minimum amount of time to cover the entire spectrum of behavior and avoid weekly seasonality. People tend to buy more on specific days. People during the weekend, they behave differently than during the week. Because during the weekend, they have different behavior. Sometimes during the weekend, you only have mobile users. Sometimes during the week, you have people working in an office, depending on your audience. So just take a week as a good starting point. Then you're going to find out probably that for your project, 2 weeks is best. Or you need a month. Or 2 hours. It's not a general rule, but start from a week. Then, another common mistake. When you do A/B tests, always do a meaningful measurement. Where is the focus here? So I told you about the funnel before, right? Common mistake. You are working on the acquisition, so you are changing your landing page, and you measure revenues as a result of the test. What is the problem with this? That there is a good chance that something that happens in between is going to spoil the test. So if you work on acquisition, so you change the landing page here, measure as soon as possible the performances of that page. Every time you are trying to improve a step, try to keep the measurement of that improvement within the same step. There are exceptions. Are there exceptions? Yes. But as a general rule, try to measure as close as possible to the point you're testing. If you do that well, you measure very close, then you fall into another problem. Micro-optimization fallacy. You get to the point where, with a test, you optimize, and you find a relative maximum in your acquisition. So let's say you have a landing page, and you have a giant button in the middle of the landing page. And you start testing that button. So you test colors, you test the size, you test the position, and you get to a point where anything you change on that button regarding size, position, and color is not improving. It's actually degenerating performances. The problem is, you forgot to put a link in the button. And if you keep on testing, you'll never figure it out. Well, probably if you put a link, yes, you're going to figure it out pretty soon. But there are things that cannot be tested in the same narrow niche on the funnel. And for those jumps to happen, you need a leap of faith. So don't be afraid of saying, I know that that is the direction. A/B tests are telling me that they're not sure about the result. Probably the A/B test says no, but you have a strong vision. Try it. Jump. How to know when the A/B test needs to be followed and when you have to jump? That is experience, and it's something that nobody can tell you unless it's you. Then, second tool that I use on a daily basis are usability tests. And this is something that I strongly, strongly recommend to use as soon as you can. So when is the right time to go for usability tests? Well, first, what is a usability test? You take real people and you put them in front of your product, or your idea, or your mock-up, or your website, or whatever. Because the entire point is, don't wait to have a ready product before putting people in front of it. As soon as you have something to show them, show them. And here, the diversity thing steps in again. Don't take people that are too involved with the project. Don't take people that are too similar to yourself. Don't even try to take people that are too similar to the final user. Anybody is fine, as long as you ask the right questions. So when is the right time? The sooner the better. Even if you don't have anything ready, even if you don't have an MVP, even if you don't have a prototype, just ask people to validate the assumptions. And judge them by the facts. Don't believe a single word coming out of a tester. That is my general rule. As soon as a tester is giving me feedback like, you know what, this button, you should put it on the other side because it's better. Someone else, next one. People are not there to tell you what to do. Are there to try out your product, your interface, your experience, your flows. So what you have to do is to look for problems, not for solutions. The people that are testing your product are not the right people to solve the issues within your product. Who are the people who should solve issues in your product? Your engineers. Because they know the product, they built it, they know how it works, they know all the constraints that are in the back end that the final user cannot see, cannot know. So if someone shows up and says, I didn't find the checkout, you should put it in the front. No, the only thing you care is, I didn't find the checkout. Even better, that person spent 5 minutes looking for the checkout, and you can see it. That is even better than him saying, I didn't find the checkout. So don't trust their words. Measure what they do, and try to be as analytic as you can looking at what they do. Then the third tool is a performance dashboard. So spend a little of your engineer's time to build your own performance dashboard. For some people, Google Analytics is good enough. Other people rely on other tools. There are many, many tools for tracking and measurement. And even Google Docs is good, Excel files, piece of paper, a whiteboard, whatever. As soon as you have something that is telling all the time about your performances. And who should access those performances? In my opinion, everybody that is involved in the project should have access to that performances. But I know that there are companies that prefer to have separation, and so up to you. But in general, try to have it. And what is the rule number 1 for a performance dashboard? KISS, that stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. If you have a dashboard that looks like this, yeah, it's going to be super fun to make it. It's going to be super fun to use it the first day, and then forget it. Nobody's going to spend time to go through this. If you have something like this that says, yay, nay, better, right? So make sure that as soon as I look at it, I know if things are going well or not. And track a weekly progress. A week is a good example. It's a good sample to tell you if you're going the right direction or the wrong direction. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, still good. But remember, if you're trying to grow fast, you have to grow fast on a weekly basis. And remember this, sliding windows. Sliding windows. It took me a few years of marketing to understand that this is the key. Because every year after Christmas, a couple of months after Christmas, I always got the same question. December was not that good, but Christmas. January was great. Revenues, traffic, everything went back on January, and February was shit. February we had 10% less revenues than January. How is that possible? And then you spend your time, and you go through it, and you count again, and it's like, I was growing. Then you look at it again and say, January 31 days, February 28 is 1/10 shorter, right? So sliding windows, every time you compare month to month, always normalize data on 28 days. Why 28? 4 weeks. So you completely clear out a weekly seasonality, and you completely wipe out the fact that our months are longer and shorter. 28 days. You want to know how today is performing, how now we're performing compared to a month ago? 28 days compared to another 28 days. It doesn't matter when you start. You can start on Wednesday because 28 days is going to completely wipe out weekends. So, we've seen adaptation skills, culture, and tools. And let's go back to the start of it. So, internet, grant me the strength to adapt to the things I cannot change, the culture to change the things I can, and the tools to know the difference. Because that is the entire key to start to think about growth. So, questions? How much time do I have? 10 minutes? 15? Something? I'd like to take a few, at least, let's say 3 questions in total. So, 3 questions. And that's it. So, first question. Yeah. I'm going to repeat the question afterwards. So, OK, he has a mic. Okay. No problem.
Sassa. About the funnel marketing, you said that you should measure the nearest
as close as possible to the...
You also told there is many exceptions about that. Don't you think that any step will influence all the steps later, because it depends on which customer you are acquiring now and in which phase are their shopping mode or which age and many...
Yes. So, if I get it right, you're asking me if every step is influencing the next one.
And the last two.
Of course, of course.
I think it's not an exception that it influences the...
No. The influence is not an exception. Is how the marketing, is how the funnel works. So you have a funnel. That means that if you are at the end, you necessarily start from the beginning. So the flow is just one direction. So of course, every time let me get it. Every time you get something happening here, for sure is influencing something happening at the end. That is not even a question. It's the way the marketing, the funnel works. But what I'm saying is, if you are working on signups, so you are trying to increase signups, and to do so, you redesign the signup process. So let's say that you go from a form full of fields that you have to fill up, so at least you ask 10 questions to the user. You go to a very simplified sign-up where you just have to provide the email address. OK? So you are working here. If you are doing that, my suggestion is measure how many sign-ups you get, not how many revenue you get, how much revenue you get at the end. Because maybe people that are more willing to sign up just giving you the email, not necessary, are people that immediately go and pay for something. There is a chance that if you simplify your sign-up process, people are less willing to pay for your product. What you have to do, though, having more sign-ups, is to work better on retention and revenue in order to convert. But the only job you did for that specific test was just the sign-up. So measure the sign-up, and then move along the funnel with more tests and more improvements to improve the experience and get to more revenue. Next one. We have two left. Yep.
Stand up, please. First, thank you very much for the presentation. It was
My
great.
pleasure.
Second, I heard someone say marketing is the price companies pay for being unoriginal. And
For being?
Unoriginal.
Unoriginal.
Not
Okay.
original. And I would like to know your take on that. And yeah, because when companies are really original, this funnel tends to be inverted, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So more people would refer than you even expect, just to put it in context. Thanks.
And I want to thank you for this, because for this I can go with one of my favorite answers to this. So what I say a lot of time is that marketing is like astrology, and growth is like astronomy. So they both look at the same things, but traditional marketing tend to come up with very interesting or questionable ideas regarding how to interpret a few things. Growth is more scientific. So it's true. If you have a company that is mediocre, you can just invest a lot of money in marketing and probably get out something at the end. And if you have something that everybody wants to have because it's really improving their life, probably you don't need a lot of investment in marketing to get people to buy it. It's fine, and I totally accept this. But on the other end, the main problem was that we had a complete new environment, a complete new universe that is the digital market, the digital universe, where objects got dematerialized. So in the past I was selling this, in the future I'm selling experiences. In the past I was making a chair, and now I'm making things that I can duplicate without losing the quality in the duplication. Imagine of MP3 versus traditional records. And marketing for a long time was trying to sell the stuff that was dematerialized the same way was selling stuff before. So marketing was 20 years older than the new approach. And every single human activity that suddenly went from let's try to interpret it to let's be scientific on it had a vertical growth in at least in predictability of the outcome. Think about medicine. So there are some form of medicines that they only work if you believe in them. And work is very slanted with the italic font in my only work. And if you go to a more scientific approach in medicine, you have a dramatic improvement in people's health. And the same is happening, in my opinion, in marketing. And they came up with this new word, which is growth hacking or growth engineering. To me, is marketing a more scientific approach to marketing. But you know, you have a cool label, you have to use it. Next one, and last one. Come on. One of the startup guys, someone that pitched in the morning. I want a question from someone with a green shirt. Well, you wear the logo, now you ask a question.
Just talking about A/B testing.
Okay.
How do I know the right sample to make my testing significant? Because it means I have to know the whole population I want to target. But if, let's say, it's a disruptive idea, I do not have a real market. So how do I define the right sample?
So the idea of applying or to find out a rule regarding a population, just sampling part of the population, it's a very old need that we have, right? That happened even in the past, when you were trying to find out if a disease was going to spread really quickly or was more limited to a subpart of the population. So this kind of stuff is solved very easily by math. So statistics is going to help you. There are many resources that you can find that are going to tell you, oh, this is your entire population. What is the minimum sample that you need? The main problem that a bigger problem is sometimes this smaller sample is still a very big sample. So at least you need, for instance, 1,000 conversions out of a population of 1 million to extend their entire law or their entire guess to validate your hypothesis across the entire population. And you have a site that only gets 50 visitors per day. In that case, it's very complicated to take a solid guess or to validate a guess in a solid way because you don't have enough traffic to validate it. That is very difficult to solve. But in general, the idea of extrapolate a law out of a limited sample of a population, just very, very simple math that you can find.
It means you have to know the whole population. I mean, maybe I can imagine my target customers with my sample.
OK, so I just repeat it because it doesn't have a mic. So you say, the problem is I want to have the entire population, or I want to have a guess that covers the entire population, but I only have a limited sample. Well, but for instance, if the sample is randomized in a way that is a reliable randomization, then you have a valid probability that is covering the, let's say, a valuable amount of the population. Of course, it's a test. And as soon as you have to extrapolate, it means that you are working in the probability area. That means you cannot say for sure, but you have enough certainty to bet. And the bet is your company. So if you had certainty, would not be a bet, therefore was not a startup, right? Well, I guess we don't have more time, so thank you very much for your attention, and thanks.